Imagine stepping outside and feeling an unbearable chill like never before, or seeing temperatures soar to summer-like levels in the middle of the winter. Across the United States, extreme weather events are shattering records, leaving millions of Americans wondering, what's going on? Before we dive in, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on breaking weather news and deep dives into the most shocking events happening around the world. Your support helps us continue bringing you high-quality content. From deadly Arctic blasts bringing life-threatening cold to the Midwest to unusual heat waves making winter feel like summer in the South, the country is experiencing a dramatic weather rollercoaster. Cities that are used to frigid winters are breaking decades-old temperature records, while places that should be cooling down are seeing unseasonably high temperatures. But why is this happening? Meteorologists point to a combination of factors, including a disrupted polar vortex, shifts in the jet stream, and the lingering impacts of climate change. While extreme weather is nothing new, the frequency and severity of these events are raising alarms. More than 230 million people in the US have been affected by these drastic temperature swings, and the consequences are being felt everywhere, from frozen pipes and power outages in the north to unseasonable tornado outbreaks in the south. The effects are not just inconvenient, they are dangerous. In some states, temperatures have plunged so low that frostbite can set in within minutes. In other regions, the unexpected warmth is fueling severe storms and wildfires, leading to disasters that are costly in both human lives and economic damage. This video will break down exactly what's happening with the weather across the United States. We'll dive into the record-breaking cold, the unusual warmth in southern states, and the science behind these extreme swings. We'll also explore the role of the polar vortex and what experts predict for the future. Is this just a freak occurrence, or is this the new normal? Let's find out. If you thought last winter was brutal, this year's cold temperatures have shattered records across the United States. Millions of Americans have found themselves battling life-threatening wind chills, frozen roads, and snow-packed cities as Arctic air surges deep into the country. In January and February 2025, a massive Arctic blast gripped the central and eastern US, bringing some of the coldest temperatures seen in decades. Cities like Bismarck and North Dakota recorded lows of -39 degrees Fahrenheit, breaking a record that stood for over 100 years. Minneapolis saw its coldest morning in decades, with wind chills making it feel like -50 degrees Fahrenheit. Even Chicago, known for its brutal winters, hit -20 degrees Fahrenheit, forcing schools and businesses to shut down. The extreme cold wasn't just limited to the Midwest. Parts of the Northeast, including New York and Boston, experienced record-setting snowfall and bitter cold that made everyday life nearly impossible. Meanwhile, cities as far south as Atlanta saw temperatures dipping into the teens, an event that rarely happens in this region. To put things into perspective, frostbite can occur in under 10 minutes when wind chills drop below -20 degrees Fahrenheit. In states like Montana and the Dakotas, temperatures were so severe that exposed skin could freeze within 5 minutes. Hospitals across the affected region saw a surge in hypothermia and frostbite cases, and emergency shelters were overwhelmed as officials worked to protect vulnerable populations from the deadly cold. The frigid temperatures had devastating effects on infrastructure. Airports reported thousands of flight cancellations due to icy runways and dangerously low visibility. Highways turned into sheets of ice, causing hundreds of accidents and massive traffic delays. In Texas, a state still haunted by the deadly 2021 winter storm, the power grid was once again put to the test. Some areas faced temporary blackouts as demand for heat skyrocketed. The brutal cold also impacted agriculture, freezing crops and making it difficult for farmers to tend to their livestock. Across the Great Plains, ranchers struggled to keep their cattle alive as water supplies froze over and food became scarce. Meteorologists attribute this extreme cold to a disrupted polar vortex, a mass of frigid air that typically remains trapped over the Arctic. When weakened, this vortex spills southward, bringing Arctic temperatures to areas that don't usually experience such extreme cold. Scientists are investigating whether climate change is playing a role, as disruptions in the polar vortex have become more frequent in recent years. Despite these record-breaking lows, winter isn't over yet. Forecasters warn that another major cold front could hit parts of the US in the coming weeks, bringing even more challenges for residents and officials. When you think of states like Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia, you probably imagine mild winters, maybe even some sunny days. But this winter, the South has been hit with record-breaking cold, leaving millions struggling to cope with freezing temperatures they are simply not prepared for. Texas, still haunted by the deadly 2021 winter storm that caused widespread blackouts and water shortages, once again found itself facing an Arctic blast. Temperatures in Dallas plummeted to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, while parts of West Texas dropped below zero. Even Houston, known for its humid subtropical climate, saw freezing temperatures that led to icy roads, power outages, and burst pipes across the city. Officials rushed to reassure residents that the power grid could handle the demand, but rolling blackouts still hit some areas as heaters worked overtime. Schools closed, flights were cancelled, and thousands of homes experienced plummeting indoor temperatures due to outdated insulation and heating systems. States along the Gulf Coast, which rarely experience prolonged freezes, saw temperatures dip into the teens. In New Orleans, the city was under a hard freeze warning, with officials urging residents to wrap pipes and limit outdoor exposure. Mississippi and Alabama saw a surge in car accidents due to black ice, as many drivers were unfamiliar with how to navigate frozen roads. In Birmingham, Alabama, emergency rooms were filled with patients suffering from hypothermia and frostbite, conditions almost unheard of in the Deep South. Water systems in multiple cities struggled as pipes froze and burst, leaving thousands without running water. Even Florida, the warm weather getaway of the US, wasn't spared from the cold blast. While South Florida remained relatively mild, cities like Tallahassee and Jacksonville recorded temperatures in the low 20s, putting crops and wildlife at risk. Farmers scrambled to protect citrus groves and strawberry fields, as extended exposure to freezing temperatures can cause millions in agricultural losses. One of the most shocking effects of the cold in Florida? Falling iguanas. When temperatures drop below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, these cold-blooded reptiles become immobile and drop from trees. While they often survive, the sight of frozen iguanas littering sidewalks and streets has become an unusual weather phenomenon in the state. Unlike northern states that are used to freezing weather, many southern homes lack proper insulation, central heating, and even snow removal equipment. Cities like Atlanta and Memphis aren't equipped with fleets of snowplows or salt trucks, meaning even a light snowfall can shut down highways and paralyze local economies. In response, cities across the South opened warming shelters for the homeless and at-risk populations, while local governments scrambled to distribute heating supplies and bottled water to residents struggling with frozen pipes. While the extreme cold in the South is shocking, it's also a wake-up call. As climate patterns shift, regions that were once considered safe from harsh winter conditions may need to rethink infrastructure, emergency planning, and energy preparedness to avoid disasters in the future. While much of the country has been gripped by a deep freeze, other parts of the US are experiencing record-breaking warmth, a bizarre contrast that has left many wondering how both extremes can exist at the same time. As the Midwest and Northeast struggle with Arctic air, the West and parts of the South are seeing temperatures soaring to 15 to 30 degrees above normal for this time of year. In states like Arizona, Nevada, and California, winters have felt more like spring, or even summer. Cities like Phoenix have seen temperatures approaching 90 degrees Fahrenheit, breaking February records. Los Angeles, which typically enjoys mild winters, recorded a high of 85 degrees Fahrenheit, leaving residents and meteorologists stunned. The warmth has been driven by a strong high-pressure system trapping warm air over the region, a phenomenon often referred to as a heat dome. This has caused drought conditions to worsen and increased the risk of wildfires, an unusual concern for winter months. Fire crews in Southern California have already battled early-season brush fires, a troubling sign of what could be another dangerous fire season. Perhaps nowhere has the weather whiplash been more evident than in Texas, where parts of the state went from below freezing temperatures to summer-like conditions in a matter of days. Just after dealing with an Arctic blast, some Texas cities saw highs in the 80s and even low 90s, record warmth for this time of year. This kind of temperature swing is not normal, and experts say it's another sign of an increasingly unstable climate. The shift from intense cold to extreme heat puts stress on energy grids, roads, and even human health, as people struggle to adjust to the rapid temperature changes. The unusual warmth has created challenges for farmers, as crops that require cold weather, like apples and peaches, aren't getting the chill hours they need to develop properly. Meanwhile, other plants are blooming too early, leaving them vulnerable to sudden cold snaps that could kill them off entirely. Wildlife has also been affected. Animals that rely on seasonal temperature cues, such as migratory birds and hibernating species, are being thrown off their natural cycles. Bears in some areas have emerged from hibernation weeks early, only to find food sources scarce. The combination of a disrupted jet stream and shifting climate patterns is leading to these extreme temperature contrasts. As one part of the country freezes, another burns, creating a chaotic and unpredictable winter season. Experts warn that extreme weather swings like this may become more common in the future, making it harder to predict and prepare for seasonal changes. To understand why the US is experiencing such extreme weather swings, record cold in some areas and record warmth in others, we need to look at one of the most important drivers of winter weather, the polar vortex. The polar vortex is a massive area of low-pressure, frigid air that swirls around the Arctic. Think of it as a giant cold air bubble that usually stays trapped over the North Pole, contained by a strong band of winds called the jet stream. When the polar vortex is stable, winter in the US follows a predictable pattern. Cold, but not extreme. However, when the polar vortex weakens or gets disrupted, chunks of that Arctic air can spill southward, plunging parts of the US into deep freezes while allowing warm air to push north elsewhere. This disruption is what caused the brutal cold snap in the Midwest and Northeast, while simultaneously allowing parts of the South and West to heat up. Several factors can weaken the polar vortex and send frigid air south. Sudden stratospheric warming. Sometimes warm air from lower latitudes gets forced into the upper atmosphere, disrupting the polar vortex and weakening its circulation. When this happens, the vortex splits or wobbles, sending waves of Arctic air into lower latitudes like the US. Climate change. While cold air has always been a part of winter, some scientists believe that a warming Arctic is making the polar vortex more unstable. As the Arctic warms at a faster rate than the rest of the planet, the contrast between cold and warm air masses weakens the jet stream, making it easier for the vortex to break apart. Jet stream changes. The jet stream, a fast-moving ribbon of air that separates warm and cold air masses, has become more erratic in recent years. When it weakens, it allows the polar vortex to expand southward, leading to severe cold outbreaks. The US has seen several major polar vortex disruptions in the last decade, including 2014. A powerful polar vortex event sent temperatures plummeting below zero across the Midwest and Northeast, with Chicago reaching -16 degrees Fahrenheit. 2021. Texas experienced one of the worst winter storms in its history, with millions losing power as the grid failed under extreme cold. And now, 2025. The current winter season has seen a new round of record cold, with areas like the Dakotas and Minnesota recording some of their lowest temperatures in over 100 years. Scientists are actively studying whether disruptions to the polar vortex will become more frequent due to climate change. Some experts warn that if Arctic warming continues, wild temperature swings like what we're seeing now could become the new normal. The big question remains, will winters continue to bring these extremes, or is it just another freak event? The answer is still uncertain, but one thing is clear. Understanding the polar vortex is key to predicting the future of winter weather. The record-breaking cold, unseasonable warmth, and rapid weather swings happening across the US aren't just inconvenient, they come with serious consequences. From public safety risks to economic costs, extreme weather events disrupt lives, damage infrastructure, and leave lasting effects on both people and the environment. Extreme cold can be deadly. When temperatures drop below freezing, the risk of hypothermia, frostbite, and carbon monoxide poisoning from improper heating methods increases dramatically. In some cities, emergency rooms have been overwhelmed with patients suffering from cold-related illnesses. On the flip side, extreme heat in winter confuses the human body, leading to heat exhaustion, dehydration, and respiratory issues. Sudden swings between extreme cold and warm conditions can also increase heart attack risks, as the body struggles to regulate its temperature. Extreme temperatures place massive stress on power grids, leading to blackouts and outages. This was seen in Texas, where the state's power grid nearly collapsed due to both freezing temperatures and, later, record warmth increasing electricity demand for cooling. Frozen roads, burst pipes, and cracked pavement from expanding and contracting temperatures also cost cities millions in repairs. In states where winter weather is rare, local governments lack the necessary resources such as snowplows, road salt, and insulated water systems to handle these extreme conditions effectively. Every year, extreme weather causes billions of dollars in damages, affecting businesses, agriculture, and transportation. Some major economic consequences include crop losses. Unseasonable warmth causes plants to bloom too early, only to be killed by a sudden freeze. Meanwhile, extreme cold can destroy entire harvests of oranges, strawberries, and other temperature-sensitive crops. Retail disruptions. When weather conditions prevent people from traveling, businesses lose money. Flights get cancelled, deliveries get delayed, and grocery store shelves go empty due to supply chain disruptions. Home damage and insurance costs. Frozen pipes, roof collapses from heavy snow, and flooding from sudden melts increase homeowner insurance claims, leading to rising costs for property owners. While cold weather is still a natural part of winter, many experts believe that climate change is making extreme weather patterns more frequent and unpredictable. The warming Arctic and changing jet stream patterns mean that severe cold snaps and record heat waves may happen more often and with greater intensity. Scientists warn that unless global carbon emissions are reduced, wild temperature fluctuations, stronger storms, and more extreme winters will become the norm, posing long-term risks for infrastructure, food security, and public health. As weather extremes become more common, the US must focus on preparedness and adaptation. This includes upgrading power grids to handle extreme temperature fluctuations, improving insulation and winter-proofing homes to protect against freezing conditions, investing in weather forecasting technology to provide earlier warnings for extreme cold and heat events, strengthening emergency response plans to help cities and states better handle sudden disasters. The bottom line? These extreme weather events are no longer a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence, they're happening now, and we need to be ready. The US is experiencing some of the most extreme and unpredictable weather in history. From record-breaking cold in the Midwest and Northeast to summer-like temperatures in the West and South, this winter has proven just how chaotic our climate can be. The disruption of the polar vortex has played a major role in this winter whiplash, sending Arctic air deep into the country while allowing warm air to surge north. Meanwhile, climate experts warn that these types of severe temperature swings may become more frequent as global temperatures continue to rise. The impact of this extreme weather isn't just about breaking records, it's about real consequences for millions of Americans. The cold has turned deadly, straining power grids and crippling cities that aren't prepared for such brutal conditions. At the same time, unreasonable warmth is damaging crops, fueling wildfires, and putting ecosystems at risk. The cost of these disasters, both in human lives and economic losses, continues to grow. So, what can we do? Preparing for extreme weather must become a priority, from reinforcing infrastructure to improving forecasting technology and emergency response systems. Climate scientists say these dramatic swings could be a preview to future winters, meaning we need to adapt before these extremes become even more dangerous. As we move forward, one thing is clear: this winter is a wake-up call. Whether it's freezing cold or record heat, we can't ignore the reality of what's happening. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on breaking weather events. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.